If you're not something women want, they will test your weaknesses without mercy. Jordan Peterson. You don't even know when it started. The way you shrink a little every time she looks at you like that. The way you hesitate before speaking your mind. The way you measure your words, trying not to shake the ground too much. You tell yourself you're being respectful, kind, understanding. But deep down, you know, it's fear. Fear of failing her expectations. Fear of being seen as weak. Fear of not being enough. And yet, she keeps testing you. Why? Because deep down, she doesn't want someone who breaks under pressure. She wants someone who can take the pressure and remain unmoved. She doesn't want to destroy you. She wants to reveal you. If you're not something women want, they will test your weaknesses without mercy. Jordan Peterson. That sentence alone holds the secret most men refuse to face. She doesn't test you to hurt you. She tests to see if there's a man behind your mask, not a boy pretending, not a shell of insecurity hidden behind charm, but a man, rooted, clear, grounded. That's why your apologies aren't working. That's why your neediness turns her away. That's why no matter how much you please, it's never enough. Because it was never about the flowers or the dinners or the texts every hour. It was always about your spine. Do you stand your ground when the storm comes? Do your values remain intact when she pushes? Do you maintain your center, even when her emotions are out of control? Because here's the brutal truth no one told you. A woman doesn't feel safe around a man who doesn't know who he is. And if she doesn't feel safe, she will test you. Again and again. Harder each time. Until you either collapse or evolve. And here's the worst part. You think it's her fault. You think she's toxic, manipulative, impossible to please. But what if she's just waiting for you to rise? Not rise with aggression, not rise with arrogance, but rise with clarity. Because clarity is power. Clarity is calm in the middle of chaos. Clarity is what separates the man she respects from the man she tolerates. And you've felt that difference, haven't you? You've been both. You've been the man she adored and the man she walked away from. And if you're honest, you know why. It wasn't what you said. It wasn't what you wore. It was the energy, the presence, the invisible signal you radiated when you knew who you were. That's what she was drawn to. That's what she was testing for. And when you began to wobble, when you began to seek her approval more than your own truth, she felt it. She didn't tell you. She didn't need to. Her soul just began to drift. Now you feel lost, confused, rejected, angry, exhausted from trying to decode what she wants. But maybe the real question is, do you know what you want? Because a man who knows his mission doesn't chase comfort. He doesn't crave validation. He doesn't break at the first emotional test. He breathes through it. He stands through it. He learns through it. Every test becomes fuel. Every storm, a sharpening. You're not supposed to avoid her tests. You're supposed to let them forge you. Because when a man becomes immovable, not cold, but clear, the game changes. She sees it in your eyes. You don't flinch anymore. You don't bend to her moods. You love her, but you don't need her to define you. And that is what makes you magnetic. Because she wants a man who leads himself, who listens, but isn't swayed, who feels, but isn't ruled. That's where attraction lives, not in your words, not in your gifts, but in your groundedness. And if you're still here, still reading, still breathing through this truth, maybe you're ready. Ready to stop blaming. Ready to stop shrinking. Ready to become the kind of man who no longer lives in reaction, but in direction. So I want to ask you something directly. What's the test you've been avoiding? Where in your life have you been softening yourself to keep her comfortable? And how is that working out? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Be real. Be raw. Because someone else needs to see that they're not alone in this. And maybe, so do you. The man you could be is still waiting, buried beneath years of compromise, hidden behind every yes you said when your soul screamed no, trapped inside the shell of who you thought you had to be to earn love. But here's the harsh truth most men never face. You were never meant to earn love. You were meant to embody strength. Not the kind that shouts, not the kind that dominates, but the quiet kind. The kind that holds eye contact in silence. The kind that says, "This is who I am," without apology. The kind that makes her feel safe without a word. And right now, you might feel far from that. You might feel broken, small, confused, alone. But every man who's ever risen from weakness had to first face it head on. You don't become grounded by escaping chaos. You become grounded by walking into it and not losing yourself in the storm. You've seen what happens when you abandon yourself, when you become the mirror of her emotions, when you try to fix everything, soften everything, please everything. You vanish, and she notices. Not consciously, maybe, but instinctively. Because when you lose your center, she loses trust. When you stop leading yourself, she stops following. When you start shrinking, she starts testing. And the tests don't stop until one of two things happens. You rise, or she leaves. That's the brutal honesty no one teaches boys. No one tells you that a woman doesn't want to lead you emotionally. She wants you steady, present, not passive, not reactive, not fragile in the face of her intensity. She wants to feel that she can bring her chaos, and you won't flinch. She wants to know that you can feel her storm and remain unmoved. But how do you become that? It starts with one habit. A habit that no one can do for you. A habit that transforms weak men into grounded ones. A habit that sounds simple, but is everything. You sit with yourself, daily, in silence. Not with your phone, not with distractions, not with the noise of opinions and social media validation, just you, and your breath, and your thoughts. Because the man who avoids silence avoids truth, and the man who avoids truth is always lost. If you can't sit with yourself, how can anyone trust your presence? If you don't know your own mind, how will you hold space for hers? If your emotions dominate you, how will you ever lead? You don't need to do 1,000 things to change. You need to master one thing: presence. Start by taking 10 minutes a day to sit, not to think, not to analyze, but to witness. Your fear, your shame, your uncertainty, all of it. Let it rise. Because here's the secret. The things you avoid are the very keys to your power. You don't become a man by building walls. You become a man by standing naked in your truth and not collapsing. The more you run from your weakness, the more it controls you. But when you face it, name it, breathe through it, it starts to lose its grip. You realize she's not the enemy. Her tests aren't attacks, they're invitations. She's asking, "Can you hold me without disappearing into me? Can you remain yourself even when I'm losing myself? Can you be the lighthouse, not the ship tossed by the waves?" That's the kind of man she dreams of. That's the kind of man who doesn't need to chase, because his presence draws her in. And if you're willing to start, just start, sitting with your thoughts, not fighting them, not judging them, just witnessing them, you'll begin to notice something extraordinary. You're not your fear. You're not your confusion. You're not your past. You're the one who sees it all, the one who can choose. And from that place, everything changes. Because when a man sees clearly, he lives clearly. He speaks with weight. He moves with purpose. He listens without absorbing. He becomes the man women stop testing, not because they've given up, but because they finally feel safe. And that kind of man, he doesn't seek control. He creates peace. He builds legacy. He leads. You don't have to fake confidence anymore. You can build it, one breath, one choice, one honest moment at a time, and she'll feel it. Not just in your words, not just in your actions, but in your being. So if you've made it this far, maybe it's time to commit. Commit to one habit, one ritual, one sacred space each day where you come home to yourself. Because the man you're becoming is already inside you. He's not waiting for her approval. He's waiting for your discipline. You can't fake groundedness. You can fake charm. You can fake status. You can fake confidence for a while. But when the moment comes, when she's in pain, when she's testing, when she's unsure, she'll look at you and know. She'll feel if your roots are deep, or if you're just pretending. Because a man who's truly grounded doesn't need to say it. His stillness says it for him. His eyes say it. His silence says it louder than 1,000 affirmations. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men don't fail because they're bad. They fail because they've never been taught how to stay present under pressure. When her emotions flare, they flinch. When she pulls away, they chase. When she challenges them, they collapse or attack. But the grounded man? He listens, not to obey, not to argue, to understand, to feel. Because he knows her chaos isn't a threat. It's a test of his strength, not the strength of dominance, the strength of containment. Can you hold your own frame without turning cold? Can you offer warmth without losing structure? Most men think they have to choose between softness and strength. But true masculinity is both. It's the fire that warms, not burns. It's the river that flows, but never forgets its course. And when a woman feels that from you, her body relaxes. Her tests soften. Her heart opens. Because finally, she's not alone in the storm. But that starts with you confronting your own storm first. Where are you still boyish in your reactions? Where do you seek validation instead of giving it to yourself? Where do you shrink when challenged or explode when insecure? You want to be respected? Start by respecting your time, your boundaries, your purpose. You want to be loved? Start by loving yourself in the moments no one else is watching. The man she wants is the man who has nothing to prove. Not because he's passive, but because he's integrated. He doesn't swing between extremes. He stands. He knows his path, even if no one else does yet. And he doesn't chase love. He builds a life that love is drawn to. But this doesn't happen by chance. It's forged. In early mornings where you rise before the excuses. In difficult conversations where you speak truth instead of pleasing. In silent nights where you reflect instead of distract. That's how you grow. That's how you evolve. And the men who avoid this path, they become bitter because they feel the weight of their unlived potential. They know they could be more, and every woman who walks away confirms it. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real, being intentional, being disciplined with your energy. You don't have to be a god. You just have to stop being a ghost. And when you speak, speak from depth. When you love, love from wholeness. When you stand, stand with clarity. She doesn't need you to be a superhero. She needs you to be here, fully. Not distracted, not divided, not playing roles, just present. And if you've ever felt like you were too sensitive, too emotional, too unsure, let this be your invitation. Those things aren't weaknesses. They're raw material. They become strength when they're trained. They become leadership when they're owned. You want to stop being tested? Then stop hiding, stop performing, stop abandoning your truth for the illusion of peace. Because deep down, she doesn't respect a man who betrays himself to keep her. She respects a man who can lose her and still not lose himself. That's what real masculinity looks like. And that's what you're capable of. You don't need more motivation. You need a mirror. And the willingness to look, really look, without flinching. Because when you can face yourself, you can face anything. And that changes everything. You've spent enough time guessing what women want, trying to decode their every word, walking on eggshells, thinking if you just get it right, you'll finally be enough. But the truth is brutal. It's not about what she wants. It's about who you are when no one's watching. Because the real test isn't her mood. It's your presence. It's whether you disappear the moment pressure hits. And if you're always chasing validation, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance. No woman respects a performer for long. Not when she sees behind the curtain. Not when she senses the void. So stop auditioning. You're not here to be picked. You're here to choose. To choose discipline over comfort. Purpose over pleasure. Depth over distraction. And yes, it's hard. It will cost you the cheap approval you've clung to. It will strip you of the excuses you've protected. But in that space, something else is born. A man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't chase, who doesn't need someone else to make him feel worthy, because he's done the work. He stared into his own chaos, and he didn't run. That kind of man? He doesn't fear tests. He welcomes them. Not to prove anything, but to refine everything. She raises her voice. He listens. She pulls away. He doesn't panic. She challenges. He stays rooted. Not from ego, from mastery. Because he knows, a woman doesn't test a man to destroy him. She tests to feel him, to feel his edge, to feel if he's real. And most men fail not because they're too weak, but because they've never dared to be strong in the ways that matter. Strong enough to be still, strong enough to feel, strong enough to say no, strong enough to lead, even if no one follows. That's what it means to be grounded, to carry structure without suffocating, to offer protection without control. She doesn't want your submission. She wants your strength, tethered to compassion. But you'll never hold her storm if you can't hold your own. You'll never lead her into safety if you're lost in yourself. So stop waiting for her to validate you. Stop expecting love to fix you. Start becoming the man who builds peace from within. That habit? It's not complicated, but it's rare. It's the habit of telling the truth, especially to yourself. The habit of doing what's right, especially when it's hard. The habit of sitting with discomfort without numbing it away. Because that's where the real growth happens. Not in a course, not in a book, in the quiet, brutal mirror of your own daily choices. So if you feel lost, good. That means you're waking up. That means your mask is cracking. That means the real you, the you beneath the fear, is ready to rise. And if that voice inside says, "You're not enough," let it speak. Then respond with action. Every test is a chance, not to win her, but to reclaim you. This is your call, not to be perfect, not to be invincible, but to be present, to be real, to be disciplined in the face of distraction, to be bold in the face of fear. Because masculinity isn't an image, it's a practice. And the moment you stop avoiding that path, you become undeniable. Now tell me, what part of yourself have you been hiding? Drop it in the comments. This is your space to be raw, to be honest, to start something real. And if this message hit you, if it stirred something, don't just scroll away, hit subscribe. Because we're building more than a channel. We're building a movement, a space for men to rise, to lead, to break the silence. You in? Let's walk the path together.